Welcome back, guys, to another video. I didn't end up purchasing the funhaver fender liners for this kit, so I decided I'll just try something myself, see how it works out. If I'm happy with it, then great, and if not, then I can always buy the funhaver kit, or probably another option will be available later on. So what I decided to do is go with some aluminum sheet metal, and I'll sort of cut that and form it to the fender well and sort of get it how I want it, and then I'll probably end up just spray painting it with like a Raptor liner or some sort of tough adhesive material to protect it from mud and rocks and etc. Now what I also did though is I'm going with the DV8 fender well kit. So I purchased the front only for that, and I'll talk about why in a moment. But so really that kit is a aluminum kit that fits in the factory place mounting points of the previous underliner. It's a little tougher, it's got some vent holes in it, and I'll show it here in a minute. But what I'm gonna have to do for that kit is cut it down and use only the part that mounts against the engine bay, and then fit this to match this wide body. This piece I'll have to fit myself with the sheet metal. So what I did, I started on this already, but what I did is I used a piece of cardboard and I put that up under the fender here and sort of marked it with a Sharpie, and then cut out, fit this all in there, cut out what the shape should be, and then I replaced that over my sheet metal, aluminum sheet metal here, and I'm doing two pieces to fit the kit in there. It makes it fit easier, and then I will place this in, sort of fold it into place while it's in there, and then cut it, do whatever trimming needs to be done, etc. And it'll really be a custom aluminum option versus the fiberglass or plastic option that the funhaver kit comes with, or that you can buy in addition to the kit. I'll be walking through the whole process of fabricating these and installing them, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. And like I said, if it doesn't work out, I can always change it later. So with that said, let's jump into it. Like I said, I've got these cut already, so now we're going to go ahead and start fitting them. So let's jump into getting these fit in the fender well now. Alright, so what we need to do now is take and cut DV8 fender liner piece down to size so that we can still use this part of it that mounts to the fender liner that goes in there. So we can still use these screw holes and mount points, but we don't need this part of it because we're replacing this again with the larger piece of sheet metal. So cut these according to these lines, and that'll get it down to the right size that we need to retain these mounting points, but we don't need this piece over here, and you'll see why shortly. Alright, so we got that cut down, so this is the piece that will retain, and this will mount up to our aluminum fender liner that we're fabricating. So let's jump over there and line this up. So now what we're going to do is take this piece that mounts against the firewall or inner piece of the fender liner that we will be keeping, and we're going to mount it to this piece that we just cut. So it goes essentially just like this. Mount up like that. And so we'll go ahead and do that, and then I'll show you how that gets mounted on the vehicle. got this piece all mounted up together. So that's what it looks like. And I bent this out a little bit more because for this kit, I needed this to be bent out so it forms all the way against the inner wall of the vehicle. Alright, so that's how that piece mounts in. You can see there, sits pretty nicely in there, and this top piece here is where our metal will slide underneath our aluminum. And so you can see here, we'll have to bend that a little bit more so it kind of sits like this. But yeah, we've got that mounted in there now, and that's how we'll attach the sheet metal to. And now we'll get the back piece in back here. All right, so that's both pieces in there. So that's sort of what it's gonna look like. You can see fit pretty nicely. I did have to add washers there. And so next we will go ahead and pop the sheet metal in and start fitting that, and I'll show you sort of how that process goes. Alright, so I had taken this piece out and bent it a little more to get these angles better aligned to the aluminum sheet metal that's going in. So I'm going to go ahead and get these back in there now, get this piece back mounted, and then we'll get the sheet metal back in there and possibly get those holes drilled, providing everything lines up correctly. Alright, with that mounted back in there, we'll go ahead and let's see, go ahead and get the sheet metal put back in now. Alright, so we've got this in there, and now we're going to go ahead and get our aluminum sheets placed in there, sort of fit into place, and then do whatever trimming, etc., that we may need to do on them. Alright, so that's how we sort of get the back piece in. You can see there, fits in there pretty nice. There's a little bit of gap right down here, but we'll get that pulled in tight when we get the final fit in. So now we got that in, so let's go ahead and pop the front piece in now. Alright, so it fits in there fairly decent on the first try here. Just kind of mold it and press it into place. Only a little bit more forming around here to get this curve right. And yeah, a little more work definitely when we mount this back. Right now we have these screws that are poking through. Those will actually be taken out and we'll go through the sheet metal, so that'll look a lot better. And then this one's got to be pushed back some more. So we're getting it there. Good fit overall starting out though, so let's try to get it a little bit more precise now. Alright, so we've got it marked all of here. I took a Sharpie and traced this out because that's where this piece is going to go in and mount right up here. So we'll cut this piece of the sheet metal out, and then I went ahead and marked sort of where this should line up, since I have it lined up where I want it to go now. And so we'll take the sheet metal back out, do these cuts, drill some holes, and then we'll stick it back in and actually start the mounting process. So yeah, we'll jump into that and see how it comes together when we put it back in. Alright, took a short break, but we're back now. And so we're going to go ahead and cut the metal that I marked previously and then get that mounted back in there, and we'll see how it fits. There may be a few more adjustments that we make before it actually gets permanently fixed in, but we'll fit it in there and mark the drill holes where we'll be screwing it or bolting it into the frame and into the DV8 kit. So we'll go ahead and jump into that now, get this metal cut, and see how it looks. Alright, so I marked, I can't remember if I showed this in the previous video, but I just marked this cutout. This is where that other piece of the DV8 kit will go. It'll screw in roughly up here. So go ahead and cut this out. And for all of this process, it's just really, you don't need any kind of fancy tools or anything. It's really a straightforward process. Just an aluminum sheet, hand tools, mark it, cut it, bend it into shape, and we'll see how it turns out. It's not probably going to be the prettiest when it's done, but I think it'll work pretty well. Alright, we'll set that aside, and we need it to bend. Actually no, this is good. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead. I think this is all good actually. That's there. Alright, so we'll get this back piece mounted in. Alright, so basically this is how it's fitting. It looks really good. What we do need to do is start the vehicle, turn this front wheel or front tires so that we can get in there with the drill and drill those bottom holes to mount this piece down here to the sheet metal. And then we'll mount the rest of it once we get that bottom piece mounted and in place. And that's because I can get my hand down in here or underneath there to put the bolt on the back. I could rip it, or I could put a rivet in, and I might do that in some places, but I'd like to get some bolts in there too, just to hold it in place. So we'll see how that goes. Let me turn this wheel real quick. Alright, so we're gonna go ahead and line this up and get this hole drilled, and then we'll get this mounted in place on the bottom here. So, let's see. All right, let's see if we can get a nut and bolt in there now. It's kind of, like I said, it's kind of hard to get to them in the back, but we'll see what we can do here. All right, we got that mounted on there. Wasn't too bad. It's fitting nice and tight. All right, let's get this front piece mounted, and we'll be doing pretty good once we get that done. Alright, I think that's in there pretty good. Now, obviously you can see the gap there in the back where the DV8 parts mount up with the aluminum sheets. Now, that will definitely come up more as I put the bolts in. So it looks pretty bad now. It won't be perfect when it's done. However, like I said, I'm probably just gonna paint all of this with like a Raptor liner or something. So that'll make a big difference. I think it'll hide it a bunch. What is left after I get the bolts in. So we'll see how it looks once I get everything really mounted up. But I think for now, the next step is to get a mount here in this corner and just hold it into place where it's supposed to be there, so that I can then do the rest of them without pulling it back out of place, so to speak. So let's go ahead and try to do that now, and then we'll go from there. All right, so what we do to get in this corner is use the factory pieces, this little clip and then the bolt that goes into it, and we use those to go in this corner. So this little clip here can go on the sheet metal, and then it makes a mounting point where we can attach the sheet metal to the fender here. So let's go ahead and try to get this hole drilled now. The trick here is to get sort of up at an angle where you can still get through this metal here, and then it'll kind of pull it back down. I'll just take and put a little piece of masking tape here on the corner, and that'll keep it from ripping the paint. Before we do that, you'll actually want to take and pop these guys in a little bit so that it sits flatter. So we'll do that now. Alright, we got that in there. Let's try to get this back into place. Let's see if we have any luck getting this in there. I actually got it in there first try, which is a small miracle. Alright, so yeah, got that in. We'll tighten it up. Final tightness once we get the rest of the bolts in. But yeah, really happy with that. It's fitting in there really nice. Like I said, this gap back here, we don't have to worry about that right now because we've still got bolts going all along here. That'll pull that up nicely. Yeah, having this corner piece in is really big, and it's actually, I thought it would be a lot harder than that, but went in really nicely. So that's the fitment right now, and next we'll get all the rest of these bolts mount it in there and get it finalized. All right, so picking back up here where we left off, we're gonna go ahead now and get the rest of the panel mounted up to the DV8 piece, and which is mounted to the frame, so that'll fit nice and snug. And then we'll work on filling in the gaps like I mentioned before. So here it is, fits really nicely in there. However, like I mentioned, these gaps here and here will need to be filled in or tightened up to take care of those gaps. So I haven't put these bolts in yet, so that's what we're gonna work on now, and hopefully pull that gap up out of there. So let's go ahead and try that now. So as always, the hard part here is being able to get behind there and get the nut on. So wherever that's not possible, we'll look at other options, including riveting. So I think I can get to these two guys. I don't think I can get to this one in the far back here. So let's go ahead and try to get this one first, and then we'll kind of go from there. Right. Alright, reaching in from above, we'll try to get to this guy. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and jump in, getting the rest of the screws into the aluminum sheet and get that mounted up securely. And then we'll address some of the gaps and fit issues that we ran into. So let's go ahead and jump into that and get those latched up and then see how it turns out. The important thing here is once you get your second bolt in, make sure this piece is where you want it, because once you get that second bolt, it makes it a lot harder to move it. So we'll try to get it back in there where we need it. Go ahead and get the drill ready. We actually need to do, before we do this, let's check that this little piece fits correctly based on where we mount the top of this guy. Alright, so actually that's pretty good. Alright. Yeah, this is always the fun part. It's pretty hard to get to these guys. There's probably a better way to do this, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, it just takes a little bit of work, but you can eventually get to them. What we want to do on the top here is measure from this point to the end of the fender, and then from this point, just to make sure they line up roughly correctly. Alright. This is going easier than I thought it would, to be honest, but this back piece is going to be the challenging one, so yeah, we'll see how that goes, but we should at least be able to get this first piece in and then take it from there. But I imagine it'll be a little bit challenging to get some of these mid pieces, but I may, like I said, rivet those, and that'll pretty much solve any issues there. So All right, so we're actually gonna have to trim off a little bit more of this piece so that it'll sit flat. You can see it hitting right here on this sort of hard wire that comes down. And so we'll have to trim the corner of this off a little bit to make it fit better. Let's go ahead and do that now. All right, so we just took this corner out here, a little more right here to let it sit down over that wire. So now we'll mount it back in there, and we'll need to put the bolts in from above. But let's go ahead and get the nuts on from above. But we'll go ahead and get these bolts in here and get it held in place. All right, so that's got everything screwed into place, fastened into place. And now really the only thing left to do is to deal with this gap. So let's take a look and see what the best option for that is. I think what I'm going to try to do is get another piece of sheet metal, bend it into place here, and really just come from this edge and then rivet it into here, sort of hide this gap. I think it'll look fine. There's plenty of space here. But yeah, overall, came together really nicely, fits really good, everything is nice and snug, so really couldn't ask for a better fit here. And it's a straightforward application, you know, it's not terrible hard to get this to fit correctly, and in fact it's a lot easier than you might think. So definitely this is a great solution if you're looking for something, if you do put a wide body kit on your Bronco and you don't have, if it doesn't come with fender liners, or if the option that it does come with is not exactly a direct fit, then this is something where you can actually save quite a bit of money and probably not do that much more work. So let's see if we can get this gap taken care of, and the next step after that will obviously be applying some sort of paint or cover on this to make it look a little better. But we'll tackle that at a different time. So let's go ahead and finish this up, and then obviously we have the other side too, but I probably won't film that one. All right, so here is the finished wheel well liners, and they came out pretty good. Now what I ended up doing for the wheel gaps against the DV8 kit is I bent some sheet metal here, sort of angled it up, and then put it into these gaps. You can see it here obviously, but once I paint this, you really won't see it at all. So these turned out really nice, and I'm really happy with them. The only, I mean, it's, you know, it is what it is, but there's definitely some imperfections, but overall I'm really happy with the way they turned out, especially for the amount of money and time that I spent on them. So yeah, you can see here, this is the other side again. Filled in these gaps here with some sheet metal and just bend it up, put it in those spaces, and yeah, I like it a lot. It turned out nice. It's really good fit. There's no wiggling or shaking or vibrations or anything, so that's all that really matters. And it also protects the inside of the engine bay from mud, debris, and all that. So it's definitely not the nicest solution. You could spend a lot more money and do something better, and I may down the road. But to be honest, right now I'm happy with this, and yeah, it turned out really nice. So that's what we're gonna go with for now. And like I said, I'm probably gonna Raptor line it, Raptor coat, or like rubberize it. I'm not sure yet. I'll do some research on what the best solution is there and then go with that. But either way, I think it'll come together nicely. Once it's coated, you won't see some of the like more gaps and whatnot. Some of the imperfections, I think, will be hidden once it's coated. So, and it'll cover up these rivets and stuff that you can see. But you know, overall, I'm not in a huge rush to even coat it. It's aluminum, so it's not gonna rust, and you know, it looks good, especially from a distance. You know, it comes together really nice. It's kind of It's kind of weird on the camera, the reflections make it look a little different where there's like divots and stuff. In person though, it looks, you know, a lot better than even on the camera. So we'll stick with that for now, and once I coat it, I'll give an update. Now jumping to the back, what I'm actually gonna do on the back is they make a kit for people who do fender flare deletes, and that's gonna just cover this piece of the trim to cover these holes and whatnot on here. And so I bought those, a full kit, unfortunately, because I couldn't just buy the rear, but I've seen some other people in the Bronco community do this, just put these on and fit them to their funhaver kit. And so I think that's gonna be sort of the best option here without replacing the entire, so if you watched my previous video, the recommendation from Funhaver is actually to cut this all out here, and then you would replace that with the Funhaver fender liners. But again, I couldn't get the Funhaver fender liners, they're sold out. They weren't on the market when I first bought this kit, and then they've been sold out the last couple of months. So I think what I'm gonna do is just go with the fender flare delete kit and then paint match that to what's already there and hope that it looks good. I think it will. And you know, it's a pretty simple solution. It hides these cracks here from the existing fender, and yeah, our fender liner. And so we will jump into that now and see about getting these fitted. I'm worried I might have to trim them a little bit to fit into this groove for the Funhaver kit, but we'll see. And they should bolt into the factory holes here and then over here. So they should fit right in here and just cover all of this. And again, Funhaver, you know, their expectation is that you would cut this all out. You know, I get it. It's probably not that bad, but it is a lot to cut out, and it's kind of a big job. And you know, you'd have to definitely go with their fender liners if you did that. So I think this will be a better solution right now. And I'm not running like 40s or anything. These are 37-inch tires, but I'll get into more of the whole build in the next video. But yeah, so for now, let's jump into fitting these fender flare delete kit onto the rear here and just see how that fits and looks afterwards. All right, so I got the back left fender liner on, or rather fender delete kit liner on. And this one was a little more difficult than I think the other side will be. So I'll go ahead and film putting the other side on. But this one I had to, if you can see here, up here, I had to cut this down so that it would fit into the line of the Funhaver kit. And so I really just had to trace this out on a piece of cardboard and then take material off until it fit right. It did end up fitting pretty good overall though, and it makes it look a lot cleaner for sure here. So I'm really happy with the way that turned out. So over on the other side, it actually doesn't look like I'll need to cut any at all on it. So taking a look here, on this side, this lip here is actually a little longer than it was on the other side. And so it appears that the fender or the fender delete kit will just sort of bolt or screw in here without cutting any off of the metal there. I will, however, need to drill more holes into the Funhaver kit here and mount the bolts for the fender delete kit in there. So we'll go ahead and jump into that now and start getting this installed on this side. As I hold this guy up there and sort of mark where these screw holes need to be. So When we do that, mounts into these holes here, just like that. Take some of this material off and go from there. So this is where the bolts come up on this fiberglass here, so I really just take out some space on the bottom so they can fit, and then we can mount on the back to sort of hold it there. But this is the main screw that will hold it in the middle, and then we'll have two bolts that go into the frame of the Bronco here, so, or rather the interior metal piece of the door here. Alright, so we got this all mounted up now and bolted into place. So, sorry I skipped around a little bit. So what you end up having to do is, this here has a lip on it on both sides, and I can show you here on the bottom. Let's see here. It's hard to do this with it on a tripod. So yeah, this lip here is the same on the top. But what happens is it doesn't sit flush with the fiberglass fender with that lip. So from this point where it comes up and meets the door here, I went ahead and cut that lip out all the way back down to the back about here, because that's when it starts getting thicker. It sort of tapers up from down here, gets thicker. So this was hanging, pushing out this way too much. So let's cut that lip out, and now it sits nice and flush in there. It's all mounted, so I'll push this fender liner back up in there, and yeah, that'll be it. So that'll wrap it up for getting the fender liners, custom fender liners installed on the Bronco. And next I'm going to be painting the front. Like I said, the front aluminum liners that I put in, I think I'll go ahead and paint those. Like I do like the aluminum look, but I think going black with like a Raptor liner or plastic coating will be the best option there. And then yeah, stay tuned for the big reveal video. That's coming very soon, I promise. And then also I'm going to be installing some extra things like some pod lights here. Eventually I'll get a roof rack light. So yeah, I got a lot of plans in the pipeline for updating this Bronco. So subscribe to the channel if you like my content, and keep watching, and I'll keep posting stuff.